Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hey, buddy, glad you're up. Listen, we know it's late, but we need you for a job.
A job? What could you possibly need me to do at 11 at night?
Well, it has something to do with one of our contractors, Edward Murray. He's not contacted us for several days, and we want to make sure that he didn't decide to run off and ditch our contract.
You want me to go confront Edwin by myself? At night?
We know it's not the best time, but things are a little tight here. Fredbear's is already understaffed, and the new Freddy Fazbear's is running way behind schedule. You're the only employee available for this. Plus, we need you here during the day, so at night is really our only option.
You already have me working 12-hour days with almost no time off. And now you want me to work at night? You're not gonna get me to work night shifts.
Look, it's only for one night, and that's it. We just need you to.
Alright, Danny. I've got it from here. Hey, Ralph. Look, I know you told me when I hired you that you wouldn't work nights, and I've honored that. But we're really short-staffed at the moment. Me and Dan are still at Fredbear's trying to get things ready for the party in a few days. So I could really use your help with this. Just this once. And I'll even give you overtime for the job. How does that sound?
I guess I could do this shift, but only this time.
Great. I know I can always count on you. Why don't you stop by Fredbear's and we can get you set up for the job? See you soon.
Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to another discussions video. And welcome back to our game rewrite universe, I guess you could say. So if you don't know, this is your first time watching one of these videos, I have been doing for the past few months a rewrite series on the FNAF games. I'm going through the FNAF games and I'm rewriting them, and they're all part of some interconnected rewritten universe. And so for the past couple months, I've actually taken a break from them and I've been working on other videos, but now we're back, and we're back obviously with Secret of the Mimic. So it's fun to come back here and get back into this sort of groove that we were in and then we stopped. But anyway, enough with that. If you want to, you can go watch the other rewrite videos, or you can just watch this one. With that being said, I also want to give a shout out to the Baldwin Verse 2 and Solid Silver for providing some of the voices for the opening scene. They'll do some more voices and stuff like that throughout the video, and I'll give another shout out at the end, but I figured since we're here, I'd give them a shout out, well, here. So thank you guys so much. And yeah, with that, let's get into the rest of the video. We'll start with some recap and rules. We'll go over Secret of the Mimic stuff, and then we'll talk about some other video stuff, and then we'll just kind of get into the rest of it from there. So without wasting any more of you guys' time, because you know I don't like to waste time on these intros, let's just get into things. And before we actually get to recap and rules, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, let's do this. Alright, so those of you who have seen my previous videos already know how this routine goes, but if you're new here, the recap and rules section often involves very little recapping and very little rules, but I basically just do some general talking about the game and some stuff to expect in the video. So with that, I want to talk about some things that I liked and some things that I didn't like from base game Secret of the Mimic, and that way you can kind of get an insight as to some of the things I'm possibly going to be changing and some of the things I'm going to be keeping. So with that, things that I liked from Secret of the Mimic. On the whole, I liked the sort of bare bones story idea that the game goes with, where you're just this guy who goes to this crazy factory and he's being hunted around by a spooky animatronic that can mimic and kind of like shape shift ish into other characters, and they're just kind of being stalked by this thing. I like that. I think that's really cool. I think that makes for a really awesome story, especially in the Five Nights at Freddy's setting. I think it just works really, really well. We haven't really gotten something like that too much, but it sort of calls back to classic FNAF where you're just a guy working alongside some spooky animatronics that are trying to kill you. Like, it fits that vibe really well. And alongside that, you also get the inclusion of Tiger Rock, which is another thing I really love from the game, which really adds into that classic FNAF style with the haunted sort of character, like a Golden Freddy, if you will. That's pretty much exactly what they are, and I think they do it a heck of a lot better than Golden Freddy. So I loved Tiger Rock in this game. Best part of the entire game. Just great. The whole haunting and all that kind of stuff, I love it. So Tiger Rock in the general sort of feel of the game, I think works really well. And another sort of major thing from the game that I liked is Edwin's overarching story on a whole, right? Where he's like, he gets the company, and then he marries Fiona, and then they have a kid, and then Fiona tragically dies, and then he builds the mimic to replace her, and then David dies, and then he gets mad at the mimic, and like you get this whole sort of thing, and then he gets his company swept out from under him. Like, he's a character that like, he's not necessarily the best person in the world, but he cared about his family, even though like work tended to come first. He cared about his family, and at the end of the day, he's a pretty tragic character. Like, when you see William Afton fall, you don't feel bad for him because he's a guy that just goes around and steals other people's companies, or, you know, just kills people. Like, he's not a great guy. When you see Henry fall, it's like, you know, you feel bad, but it depends which version of Henry you're seeing falling. Edwin, I just think you feel really bad for. Not book Edwin, but game Edwin. You feel really bad for. And I think he's a really tragic character, at least how I perceive him. So that's another big part that I like from the game. And that kind of covers like the major things. There's other stuff I like from the game, but just not gonna really bring up here because it's not super important. Now, things that I didn't like from the game, there's sort of like two big-ish things that I didn't like from the game. And the biggest one has to be the gameplay itself. Now, the gameplay works fine. It's good. Like, it's not like it's bad gameplay. It works really well, and it works for the game on the whole for the most part. But to me, it really just felt kind of dry and uninspired. Like, some things they took from Ruin, which worked fine, like the data diver being the Faz wrench. It's pretty much the same thing. I think it's okay. It's a little bit uninspired, but you can say the same thing about the classic FNAF games where it's just the same formula repeated over and over again. So I'm not going to bring up too many arguments with that, but the rest of it I kind of have a bigger issue with, because every FNAF game, even Steel Wool FNAF games, tended to have more interesting gameplay, and this was just a bunch of chase sequences and hunting sections, which aren't terrible to have, but like when that's the entire gameplay and there's like nothing else to it, it gets a little bit boring. Like, oh cool, I'm in another hunting section. It's not like I've just done that like 5 times already. So to me, it just feels way too repetitive, uninspired, and a little bit dry. Plus, this is all stuff I've seen in other mascot horror games, so it's nothing new either. And like I said, it's not that it's bad gameplay. Like, I have fun playing the game. I just wish there was maybe a little bit more. Like the Tiger Rock section, that was distinctively somewhat unique. You don't see that too much, and it worked really well. I just wish they maybe would have done a little bit more of the like uniqueness, is what I guess I'm trying to say. So that's kind of the biggest thing I didn't like from the game. Even then, though, it's not like the biggest complaint with it, like, at all. Like, it's just the gameplay. It's not the end of the world. And the second thing that I didn't like that's kind of major, and this kind of ties into some of the big changes I'm doing, is the location itself. I don't mind the big factory warehouse, but the huge sprawling underneath basement complex where there's like lava tubes, which is not how power works, but that's a whole nother argument. But you have all the lava tubes and all these huge like pits in the ground. It seems just way too wildly outlandish to have in like the 1970s. Like, when Security Breach does it, it makes sense because it's like the 2030s and you can build mega projects. And like in 1979, it just seems a little bit weird to have all this crazy stuff that like the United States military would be envious of. It just feels so out of place to me. So that's a big thing I wasn't a fan of. And not that the factory has a basement, like that's not the issue. It's just the size of the basement. So that's one of the biggest things I didn't like about it. But that's really about it for things I didn't like. On the whole, not bad. I think the game works pretty well. And as time has gone on, I've kind of grown to like it a little bit more. It's still not anywhere near my favorite FNAF game, but it's up there more. I tend to like it a little bit more. And that's sort of it for, like, I guess our recap of Secret of the Mimic, if you will. Now, some miscellaneous notes that I kind of want to bring up here that I didn't know where else to put in the video. There will be some connections to previous rewrite videos in this video, so I'll try to point them out when necessary. However, I think I'm going to kind of try to avoid that. On the one hand, it means that you guys should go watch the other videos because they're really cool. But it also means that people who have seen those other videos might be able to put the pieces together and kind of realize some of these connections. So just keep that in mind. There may be some slight connections, but there's not anything story heavy involved there. But I just thought I'd bring that up. That's about it for the recap and rules. We're going to move into sort of, I guess, the start of the video. And before we actually start the story section, I do want to give some context as to, like, the build up and some of the more important things that are going to take place in the video, and just sort of talk about that so that you guys don't go in fully blind. I just want to give you guys some context. So that's what we'll do next here. So yeah, let's get into that. All right, so for this section, changes in context, I'm going to start with some of the, like, new animatronics and stuff like that that are getting brought in here. And then I'm going to talk about some, like, almost timeline or, like, story build up to the start of the main story for the game. So some of the new animatronics, or, like, kind of change in animatronics that you're going to see here. The biggest change is Maestro Man. He's still here, but he's getting basically as removed from the game as I can make him. I wasn't the biggest fan of having a gigantic King Kong animatronic jumping around on gigantic smokestack cylinders outside the building. So he's kind of getting, like, super downscaled, but he's still here and he does still show up and you do still interact with him, just in a little bit of a different role than he has in the base game. So any Maestro Man, or Big Top, but I call him Maestro Man, any Maestro Man fans out there might be a little bit disappointed, but it was a necessary change to get the feel of the game that I'm trying to, you know, rewrite here. So that's just one of the changes. New animatronic wise, way less important ones here. So in the base game, you have Mr. and Mrs. Helpful. I never liked them. I don't know why Helpy's here. And clearly, Scott and Steel Wool also weren't going to have Helpy here because there's a cut character in the files known as Ringmaster Rat. And he has basically the same animations and almost a similar model to Mr. Helpful, and he's just cut from the game. So clearly they weren't going to use Helpy for Mr. Helpful, and then they replaced Ringmaster Rat with Helpy for the sake of connecting to characters that didn't need to be here. So I'm giving Ringmaster Rat his justice. He's coming back. He's replacing Mr. Helpful, because who needs Helpy here? We have Ringmaster Rat. But he can't be alone because there's supposed to be a secondary character. So in a fun Easter egg connection, not connection, a fun reference, I guess you could say, to a certain Five Nights at Candy's, I'm introducing Carnival Cat to be his companion. So you have Ringmaster Rat and you have Carnival Cat, like Rat and Cat from Five Nights at Candy's. I just thought it'd be kind of a fun thing to do, and that way they're both a little bit more distinctive than just being bear robots. And, like, that's about it. So there's a little bit more distinction here, and Carnival Cat also has the distinct blue and green eyes, which brings up the hint of, well, who came first, Carnival Cat or Tiger Rock? Just kind of a fun thing there as well, another connection to that. But I just thought it was kind of fun, and thanks to Baldwinverse 2 for the artwork for Carnival Cat. Again, those are just sort of, like, not really that important. They don't really show up here, like, at all, but I just thought I'd bring that up as a change. And probably the most important new kind of changed animatronic for this is Sun and Moon. I've made an advertisement for him. He's on the thumbnail, but the actual security breach Sun and Moon will be showing up in this. And some of you might be like, well, why are they here? I made a whole video. It was one of my first discussion videos. I talked about how Sun and Moon's Ruined model shares a lot of similarities to Ruined Mimic and Ruined, like the costumes that you find in the room that the Mimic is stuck in. And those costumes are obviously MCM costumes. They're like pretty much the exact same. So there's clear connections between the Sun and Moon model, or at least like supposed to be that model, and MCM. I'm a little sad they didn't do anything with that in Secret of the Mimic, so I'm bringing them in here because they obviously have clear connections to them. So they're here. And that's kind of why they're here. They'll also play a bigger role than the creepy Moon, who like sings down in the basement. He's kind of gone, but his creep factor gets added into somebody else. So we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Sun and Moon are kind of like the newest addition, if you will. And that's kind of it for like the major animatronics that are getting introduced here. And so now we'll move into the like, I guess, prelude almost, if you will, to the story. And we'll kind of just talk about some things in context building up to that. So Fazbear Entertainment wise, I don't know exactly when, but William Afton and just him creates Fazbear Entertainment. He hires on Dispatch, or as I call him in here, Dan or Danny, which is kind of like a play up on Andy for Andy Field, the voice actor. So you have William Afton, and then he hires on Dispatch, and they're kind of close friends. And then they hire on some more people, and they have pretty much just Fredbear's Family Diner. But they work with MCM and Murray to try to launch a new Fazbear's location. They're going to launch a new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's going to be the new franchise of, Fredbear's Family Diner. And so they're kind of trying to hire on more people. They're working with Murray. Murray's kind of, not doing great because of all the things that are happening to him. And so there's some struggles there. But yeah, it's pretty much just William Afton running the show with some people supporting him. They hire on Ralph about a couple months before the start of the game, and some of you might be like, well, why is Ralph here? Does he replace Arnold? Yes, he replaces Arnold. I'll talk more about that in my behind the discussions video tomorrow, but I did replace Arnold with Ralph just more for like a fun, it's more of a me thing. Okay, it's not necessary, but it's more of a me thing. But anyway, they hire him on, and that's sort of the whole Fazbear side of things. It's a lot smaller than Fazbear is in base game Secret of the Mimic. And it's a lot more like close quarters, close-knit kind of a group of people. On the Edwin side of things, there are a lot more large changes. So in mine, Fiona dies in 1978, a year before the events of Secret of the Mimic take place. Now that's pretty recent, but there's a reason for that, because the Mimic doesn't get built until 1978, where he gets introduced in that year's Fall Fest, where something happens and it causes a fire, and thus it ends up killing Fiona. But Edwin, who had rushed the Mimic project in a way to capture lightning in a bottle twice, because he's done everything, so now he's trying to do the next big thing and create a brand new animatronic, he doesn't really blame the Mimic, and he's like, oh, it was an accident. And so he tries to reprogram the Mimic to watch David and take care of him, but since it's the Mimic and it's just a robot, it doesn't really know how to do that. But David and the Mimic become good friends. And then one day, there's a horrible accident. David gets hit by the car. He's running out the road to grab his ball. He didn't see it. He gets killed. And then at that point, Edwin blames the Mimic, especially because all of these events happen within like a year. Like David dies in early 79. So like it's all very like close together events. And so Edwin basically faces a ton of tragedies. He's getting his company swept out from under him by William Afton's shady dealings. He's basically getting everything thrown in his face in like the span of a year. And so his mental breakdown is a lot faster. He beats up the Mimic, he destroys it, he tosses it out, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. And then he's working with Fazbear Entertainment, and they're trying to steal employees, and they're trying to steal his company. And he finds out that basically William had hidden the little thing in the contract of like, hey, if you don't fulfill this, we get all of your stuff. But Edwin hadn't read the contract fully because he saw, ooh, cool deal, tons of money, I'm gonna do this. And so then now he's getting his company stolen, and he's just down in the dumps. And then about a week before the events of my Secret of the Mimic take place, which is about like early November-ish, the Mimic comes back. And there's a ton that happens. I'm not going to say everything here because part of it pertains to the video, but a ton of things happen where there's a ton of chaos at the factory, and then things go dark. And nobody's heard from Edwin or the factory in like a week. And then that's why we get sent. You heard that in the opening scene, which would be the opening cutscene to the game. And that's sort of the context leading up to the start of Secret of the Mimic. Anyway, that's about it for the context and like the lead up and some of the changes. I could have gone into more detail, but I really want to get into the story, especially since it's been like a long time since the start of this video. So let's finally get into the story. We're going to go through things here. It's going to be very similar to my Security Breach rewrite video. We're going to go through chapter by chapter, start of the game, and then kind of go through in order of events, which are mostly not scripted, but mostly you'll see. So we'll start at the beginning, chapter 1. I don't really have the title for any of these, but let's welcome you to the MCM facility. So the start to our story is pretty similar to the base game. You pull up to the MCM facility, it's just you in a Fazbear vehicle, you get out, and you gotta get into the facility itself. Now, there are a couple differences. The first one is in what Dispatch tells you. Like in the base game, Dispatch will talk to you once you get there, but what he talks about is a little bit different, since our mission here is also a little bit different from the base game. We're here to find out what happened to everybody here, if they're still here, and if there are people here, we need to kind of help them out and make sure that everybody, makes it out safe. Even though we're probably more concerned with the fact that we want Edwin to build more stuff rather than his actual safety. Anyway, Dispatch will talk to you about that and be like, hey, if there's nobody when you get there, head to the security office. There should be a phone in there that I can contact you with. So just head to the security office, and that'll be a good sort of like starting location to start looking around the facility to see what happened to everybody and see if you can find anyone. So that's what he tells us to do. We get out and we try to go into the facility. Now, another small difference, is that in the parking lot, unlike it being empty or filled with garbage and stuff like that, there are other people's cars in the parking lot. So it shows that there should be other people here, but it's kind of quiet. It's kind of empty. There's just these cars sitting here. So it's like, what the heck happened to everybody? Just another small detail that's a little bit different. Anyway, you go to make your way in. Again, like the base game, the front door's locked, so you can't go in that way, and you have to go around. However, we're getting rid of the welcome show because I hate the welcome show. It's one of my least favorite parts from the game. The stupid singing, I hate it. So if you guys like it, cool. Me, hate. So we're going a different way on how to get into the facility. And how you do that is by going through the loading docks. So where trucks would pick up and drop off different materials and skids and stuff like that. That is where you are going to be entering the facility from. So you enter through there and you find yourself in the main warehouse area. And the warehouse itself, the main one, will be somewhat different from the base game. I'm actually going to be using the background images that I think were used in the PAX West demo, where it's a different warehouse layout, and I honestly like this one a little bit better. There should be pictures of it up as I'm speaking. I like it a little bit better. I think it works a lot better, and it's a lot creepier to me. So we're going with something like this. Obviously, it would be more polished up and fixed up, but we're going with a design like this. So when I'm talking about the main warehouse, keep this image in mind. So you walk through there and you'll hear like the distant ringing of a phone. It's very faint and it's very distant, but you'll hear a phone ringing. And you have to figure out how to get to the security office. It's not that hard. It's pretty obvious. Like, you just got to walk through the warehouse and you pretty much get there. But you got to make your way over there through the warehouse. And nothing really happens. There's nothing really there. You don't really run into anything. It's pretty quiet. You just go to the security office. However, if you have a keen eye and you're looking around and you're actually trying to like spot things, you may see a set of eyes staring at you from up on the catwalks area, like hiding in the shadows. So there is somebody here watching you as you're walking through, but you might not notice them immediately if you're not like super observantly looking around. Just a small little detail. So anyway, you walk through the warehouse, you go through a set of doors, and you find yourself in like a little commons area where it's like a kind of larger room. There'd probably be some like tables and chairs and some of those like plants and pots kind of a thing. Like it's supposed to look like a kind of nice little lounge area, if you will. And there's like three sets of hallway, not three sets, there's three hallways that make sort of a T shape. When you walk into the commons area from the warehouse, there's a hallway that goes directly in front of you, a hallway to your left, and a hallway to your right. Also off to your right, and you'd be able to see this in the warehouse, is the security office. It's sort of attached to the wall right there. It sticks out into the warehouse area a little bit, and it also sticks out into the commons area a little bit. So you just got to go in there. That's where the phone is. You go in there, and you pick up the phone, and dispatch starts to talk to you. And he'll tell you that throughout the facility, there are various other phones that you should be able to either call him from or receive calls from him, you know, sort of a vice versa kind of a thing. You can answer calls or you can call him. And there's phones all over the place. So you don't need to always come back to the security office just to talk to the dispatch. He can be anywhere that you need him to be. So he tells you that. And basically there'd be some exchanging of information. Ralph would talk about how like, hey, there's nobody here. At least I haven't seen anybody, but there are cars parked outside, yada, yada, yada. It just kind of goes on about that kind of stuff. And dispatch will tell you that like, all right, why don't you just take a look around the facility, just see if you could find anything. It should be fine. There shouldn't be like, if there's nobody out here, I doubt there's anything bad that's going to happen. So just go look around the facility and see if you can find these people. That's sort of how dispatch talks. But he also brings up that you will need a certain data diver in order to access certain facilities, and that there should be one in the security office somewhere, since that would most likely be where they are kept. So you can go and you can find said data diver, and dispatch will tell you that you will need certain accesses to get to certain places of the facility. And since you're most likely going to be checking Edwin's office, you need executive level access in order to get in there. So he tells you that you'll need to go through, upgrade your data diver, get all the information, all that kind of stuff in order to access Edwin's main office, just to see and take a look around. Also, maybe find some secrets along the way, but basically just look around for people and see what happens. And he'll also bring up that they have a map of the location. It's a little bit of an older map, but it should still be accurate. And from what they can tell, that there should be a data diver upgrade port somewhere within the pirate showroom area. And that's probably where we should go first, just to, you know, see if there's one there. Just go there first. It's not that far out of the way. And so that will be our first main mission, if you will. So when you leave the security office, the showrooms, like the demo showrooms, would be in the hallway to your right. So the one next to the security office area. So you just got to head down there, and along the way, you'll have some small minor encounters, if you will. Nothing crazy, no hunting sections, no nothing like that. Just small encounters where you might see somebody walk past an interior window, or you might see something like turn a corner right as you turn a corner and stuff like that, where it's like, hey, there's somebody here, but it's sort of like a blink and you miss it kind of a thing. Like you might not see it, you might be looking at something else and then not see it, but if you do see it, it's kind of like, whoa, there's somebody else here, and this is kind of spooky. Now obviously you know that it's the mimic. Like going into the game, you probably know it's the mimic. Watching this video, you know it's the mimic, but it's supposed to give this sort of sense of unease, like, hey, there's something here, maybe, because I don't think I caught it fully. However, along your way here as well, you'll get another small encounter where you won't see anything, but the lights will flicker and you'll hear a little kid laughing. Just a small little, potentially Tiger Rock encounter that may occur every so often throughout your playing experience, if you will. So along your way to the showrooms, you just run into some basic, small, spooky encounters, but nothing really major happens. Once you get to the showroom area, you'll see that it's very similar to the base game one, where you have, like the story time showroom, but that one's blocked off, and then you get like the birthday one and the big top and stuff like that. However, there are differences here. So instead of those, I've renamed all of them. The layout's pretty similar in terms of the doors for them, but their names are different. So directly in front of you, where big top showroom would be, you have Maestro showroom, because you know that in mine it's not big top, it's Maestro Man. So you have Maestro showroom directly in front of you. Off to your right would be the like party time or party showroom, something like that, and that's the one that's blocked off. You can't go that way. And then to your left is the pirate showroom, and that's the one you need to go to. So you go up to the door, you try to get in, and it's like, hey, you need a pirate pass in order to get in here, so we can't let you in until you get that. Or if you had like higher level security, but it's like one or the other, and you don't have either, so you can't get in. And the best way to get a pirate pass is by playing some of Maestro's mini games. So you go over to Maestro showroom, and you will see Maestro Man himself. He's probably the size of normal Music Man, probably a little bit taller than a regular person. I don't know how tall regular Music Man is, but Maestro Man is probably taller just a little bit than a regular person. So you walk in, and he's kind of got that ticket booth look, but he doesn't have like the huge crane arms or anything. He's just smaller, pretty much. But he'll be there, and he'll talk to you. I don't know if he'll still have the same deep voice and like simplistic talk, or if he'll actually talk. I'm not sure yet. I don't know why I'm saying yet. I'm not really sure. Doesn't really matter. But basically, he invites you to play some of the mini games, and you do so. You win some prize wheel spins. It's pretty close to the base game. There's just no hunting section here. So once you beat all 3 mini games, you do the final spin on the wheel. You get the pirate pass. Yay, cool. You can go to the pirate showroom. However, while you're playing the mini games, if you have an open eye and you're looking through the open doorway out to the main hub area, you might see the mimic walk past the showroom, the Maestro showroom, and he'll walk past and into pirate showroom area. And if you see him do that, it kind of gives you the impression that like, hey, the mimic can get around places that we can't get to. He doesn't have a data diver, but he can get around to wherever the heck he wants to go, which sort of builds up some like, how is he doing this? But it's a small little encounter that if you miss it, then you're not really out anything. But if you see it, it gives some context as to what's going to happen next. So anyway, you go through, you get your pirate pass, and you can go over to the pirate showroom. So you go over there, you give probably Ringmaster Rat your ticket, and you're like, hey, here's the ticket, or Carnival Cat, doesn't really matter, either one of them. You give them your ticket, they're like, cool, welcome to the pirate showroom. You go in, and this is where things get drastically different, because this is an entirely new location. This isn't just reworked locations, this is entirely new. And how I imagine this is it's probably a larger rectangular room, like just a pretty like standard rectangular room area. But how the big differences with this is along the sides of the walls, you'll have various stages set up with closed curtains. Directly on the opposing wall that, you have the entrance door, and then the opposing wall from that, you'll have a main half circle stage with a starry curtain that's closed. And there'll be other display cases throughout the area as well that will have like various pirate themed things, whether it's like toys or stuff like that, just on these displays. But in the very center of the room, there will be a pedestal that has a showtime or like play showtime button on it. And you'll need to press that button in order to open everything up so that you can get to wherever the upgrade port is, because Murray decided that it'd be fun to have to do that. I don't know, just random stuff, but you have to press the button in order to get to where you need to go. So you press the button and everybody activates. Hey, the curtains open and you get to see a bunch of animatronics on these stages. And you'll get a whole wide variety of them. I'm thinking all of the puppets that we see in the Foxy Theater area in the base game would be here, but upgraded into actual animatronics. Probably like a mix between like the Monty and Mr. Hippo ones that we see that are a little bit more realistic, and something like the Springlock suits that we see where they're a little bit less realistic and more classic FNAF style, somewhere in between those is what these animatronics would look like. And they're probably singing, there's probably some pirate music playing in the background. But then the main curtain opens and we get our look at Captain Foxy. And he's sort of like a mix between this semi-realistic look I was talking about, but also incorporating features from other Foxies. He's kind of got like a mix between Withered Foxy and regular Foxy in terms of like head structure and design. He's also got a peg leg like Rockstar Foxy. He's got the pirate like captain coat, and he'd probably have a hat kind of like Captain Foxy from the Log Ride games. And so he's kind of like a mix of all of these different Foxies. And so he'd be there and he'd say something in a Foxy voice, you know, like, ahoy, or something like that. I don't know. He'll speak. And then everybody's just kind of like dancing on stage. And it's just kind of like a fun, like, hey, it's a pirate showroom. Everybody's having fun. And so you go to get your upgrade. You get the upgrade. And as you go to leave, that's when you hear like a crash. As you get the upgrade, you hear like a crash from outside in the showroom. And you go out and Foxy isn't on stage anymore. He's now like running around because Foxy runs. And if he sees you, he'll charge straight at you and you have to like quickly get out of the way. Otherwise he'll kill you. And so you just gotta basically make your way back out of the showroom as Foxy is just like crazily running around the area and running even faster if he sees you. So you just got to get out of there, and this is your first mimic encounter. It's sort of like a hunt section, mixed with like a little bit of like a mini boss, if you will, but it's your first mimic encounter, and you just got to survive. So you just make your way back out of the room. It's relatively easy. It's nothing crazy. You get back out, you go back to the security office because that's what you need to do, and that's where you'll get your next set of, you know, mission instructions or whatever. So you go back to the security office, right? You get there, you have the next level, the data diver, and you either dispatch calls you or you call dispatch, doesn't really matter, one of those two. And you basically just, there's some exchanging of information, some like, hey, something is hunting me down, and it was Foxy, but it was hunting me down, or whatever. And then dispatch tells us that like, hey, you know, this kind of sounds like maybe it's this mimic thing that Edwin was trying to make and that he kind of did, and then it went rogue. Maybe we should try to find a way to stop this thing because it probably killed everybody that was here. And you're already there, so why don't you stop it? A little bit of that like Fazbear negligence of like, hey, well, you're already in the situation, so you might as well continue with your deadly task of trying to stop this thing, right? Just some classic Fazbear scheming and scumminess there. But as dispatch is kind of telling us this thing, he gets cut off. Dispatch, he's not talking anymore. He gets cut off. And that's when we get a call from none other than Edwin himself. And he sounds super weak, super tired, and he tells us that he is just barely still alive and that he had locked himself in the main office of his house after the mimic went rogue. It went rogue. It was ravaging the place, killing everybody, and Edwin was able to get to his house and lock himself in his office, but now he can't get back out. It was like a one-way lock, and he's got some provisions and stuff in there, but like he ain't gonna last much longer. So he tells us that we need to help him get him out of there, right? He's stuck here. We gotta help this guy out, get him the heck out of his office. And he tells us that we need a fully upgraded data diver to do so. But he also brings up that the mimic is out there and hunting us down. There'd probably be some exchange of like, hey, yeah, we just encountered him. And Edwin would tell us that don't let the mimic get your data diver, because if you let the mimic get a fully upgraded data diver, it will be able to leave the facility. He can't leave now. There's programming, something with his programming won't let him leave the facility, but if you give him a fully upgraded data diver, he will be able to leave and then become, you know, rogue out in the rest of the world. At least he's somewhat contained here. If he's out in the real world, there's no stopping him. So he kind of gives us a little bit of information as to like the importance of this data diver and that we don't let the mimic get it, but we also need it fully upgraded to save Edwin. So it's sort of like a double-edged sword of we're upgrading this thing that the mimic can use to leave, but we also need it to free Edwin. Kind of a tricky situation there. So he tells us a little bit about this, and he tells us that once we are able to get to him and free him, he should have a way to help stop the mimic. He was working on it. He wasn't able to finish it though, since the mimic went rogue. but he has a way to help stop the mimic. Then Edwin gets cut off and dispatch comes back on, and he's like, yo, what the heck happened? We lost you there for a minute. And then there's some back and forth again with Ralph and dispatch, and there's kind of some back and forth telling us that, like, hey, Edwin's still alive, you know, like there's some back and forth, and they explain the situation to each other, and eventually everybody talks to each other, and they all come to the same conclusion of, let's upgrade the data diver, free Edwin, stop the mimic, and get the heck out of here. So that's now your plan. Dispatch hangs up with you, and you're on the phone with Edwin, and he tells us that the next data diver should be in the warehouse manager's office, which overlooks the main warehouse area. There should be one in there that we can use, give us some more permissions, and that's the place that we should head next. So we go up there. It's the same sort of deal like when we went to the showroom demo area, where you have to go down one of the other hallways and go through some back areas, get to some stairs, maybe an elevator, don't exactly know, but you work your way over to the manager's office, but there's nothing really crazy that happens. There's no hunting section, there's no like anything like that. There's just small encounters and one larger encounter, not with the mimic, but this time we get a visual appearance of Tiger Rock, who flickers the lights, and the building shakes a little bit. It just shakes just a little bit as Tiger Rock shows up. You hear the kid laughing again, and it's like the spooky situation, and then Tiger Rock leaves, the lights come back on, and everything kind of goes back to normal. Kind of a setup for potentially a very big thing that's going to happen at the end of the game, but another Tiger Rock interaction here. But nothing really serious or major or like, I guess, life-threatening happens on your way to the manager's office. So you get there, you find the upgrade machine, it's in like the back, and there's like some filing cabinets and some desks set up in there and stuff like that. And so you go there, you upgrade the data diver, and once you're done upgrading it, like you click finish, upgrade, or whatever on the screen, a in-game cutscene will begin. And you'll hear the phone ringing. Ralph would walk over to the phone, pick it up, and be like, yo, what's up? And that's when we get Edwin telling us that, from what he can tell, we are not alone. The mimic is out there, and he has, found another costume to wear, and he's going to hunt us down. We need to be on the lookout for whatever or whoever he's trying to be, but it's probably somebody that's going to be fast, and probably somebody that can get around really quick. And that's when we hear some very distinct Jackie laughter, and we see the two orange arms stretch up past the office windows, and Jackie comes into view, and she's staring at us, and then she'd say her signature like, time to play, or something like that, and like the sort of mimicky garbled voice, and then she'd swing off to one of the sides, and then she'd come barreling into one of the hallways. And this is where I need to explain the setup here. I guess I probably should have explained that earlier, but I'll explain it here. So the office is actually pretty much like the exact same that we see in the base game, where you have the window to your front, and then there's like a door to your right and a door to your left. Now in the base game, one of those doors is blocked and broken, and here both doors are functional and they lead out to separate hallways. It's pretty much just the base game office, just slightly more repaired, and you have both hallways to use. And so Jackie goes into one of those hallways and comes barreling down towards the office, and Ralph would run over, pull one of the levers, and it will close one of the office doors, which are open, and Jackie would slam into it, bang against it, crash into it, and eventually back off. And now you kind of know what you need to do. Now, Edwin would still be on the phone, and he'd be like, just survive as long as you can, don't let her get to you, obviously, and if she tries to look through the window, I'd recommend hiding, because if she sees you, she'll probably smash through the window, or something like that. And so now we know what we have to do for this next little bit of time. It is not timed, but like it's not an infinitely long section. Like there's not like a progress bar that you have to do. You just have to survive for a little bit of time until Jackie gets damaged enough by crashing into the doors in order for you to do like the final attack or whatever. But this is a very interesting section for me, because it's based off of an idea I thought we were gonna kind of get in the base game, based off of what people were talking about for the PAX West demo. So I remember people talking about there was going to be a manager's office section, and then there was going to be like the chase section. Now, obviously, what they were referring to in the base game was the like small section where you activate the generator, and then Jackie shows up for like 2 seconds and then throws the digitiper into the wall. that's what they were talking about, but how people were wording it, it was like two distinct like gameplay sections. And so I thought, hey, there's an office section, maybe we're gonna get like a somewhat classic-ish style FNAF game where you're stuck in an office and you gotta survive against an animatronic that's trying to kill you. I thought maybe we were gonna finally get that. We were finally gonna get the return of classic FNAF gameplay, and then we didn't. So here, I'm taking that idea and I'm putting it into here, where you have two doors, one to your left, one to your right, that you need to close when said animatronic is getting close to it. And if an animatronic shows up in the window in front of you, you need to hide behind one of the filing cabinets or stuff like that. So it's an interactive, moving around FNAF office section, but it definitely calls back to the more classic era of FNAF, with it being like you gotta close the doors and stuff like that. I just think it's a lot more fun, and it's not just a Jackie chase sequence, which is like straight out of Poppy Playtime. I honestly didn't enjoy the Jackie chase. It's super short and it's all just like super predictable. Here, at least there's something to do. You're not just running. There's actually something that you have to do. So you go through this section, you close the doors on Jackie, and like I mentioned, Jackie will get damaged every time she runs into one of the doors. Eventually she'll lose the nose, she'll get more beat up, she'll get more damaged, and eventually she'll get to a point where it'll be like one more closing the door will sort of initiate this, not cutscene, but a new animation where the door will actually slam on Jackie's face. Sort of like how it happens in the chase sequence in the base game where you close the one garage door and it slams her head against the ground. Kind of like that, where it like smashes her up a bit more. But this time she also loses one of her hands, which gets stuck on the other side of the door. So she loses a hand and gets super beat up. She retreats, and that's the end of the Jackie office section. So just like a return to kind of classic-ish style FNAF gameplay, but with some fun tweaks and giving Jackie at least a little bit more to do than just a generic chase sequence, if you will. So you get through this, you defeat Jackie, she leaves, whatever, and now we can then pick up the phone and talk to either Dispatch or Edwin to figure out what to do next. So after Edwin tells us that the next upgrade port is in the doll hospital and that's where we need to go next, he tells us that we can take the like hospital tour ride to get there in order to, you know, get there quicker, get to the upgrade port, stuff like that. We can take the Dolly hospital tour ride kind of a thing. But Dispatch comes back on the phone and tells us that we can't do that because from what they can tell, since they have access to various features within the MCM facility, from what they can tell, that the ride's been blocked off. It's been destroyed. Something's happened to it that you can't use it. So you'll have to go through the main warehouses in order to get to the doll hospital. And this might start to be the point where you get some suspicion about like, hey, maybe somebody isn't who they think, like who they say that they are, but also maybe they're all who they say they are. It just is starting to build up maybe a little bit of suspicion. Unless there was that already, but there's a little bit of starting to build up more because these people are disagreeing with each other on what exactly is happening here. So anyway, they tell you where to go, and now you have to go through the main warehouse area. Of course, this means another small encounter. So you get out there, and what small encounter do you have when you play the base game and you go into the main warehouse? That's right, when you go in there, surprise, surprise, party time Chica shows up and she's on the roller skates and she's dancing and she's skating around. Super fun. I loved that part, especially the music playing. It was amazing, so I wanted to definitely keep that in here, especially because it's Chica. So this is your Chica encounter, and she does what she does in the base game, except here there's multiple warehouses you have to work your way through, and you'd have to maybe solve some puzzles. Probably not like go collect parts to solve the puzzle, but like find ways to get through each warehouse area in order to get to the doll hospital. And here Chica would be skating around, but she wouldn't be alone in that. You have Mr. Cupcake, who also has skates, but he's also not alone, because in the base game we got to see, I guess, potentially concept art, if you will, like in-game concept art and stuff like that, of other foods also being there as like little sidekicks to Chica for Chica's party world, which I'm not going to go into here, but potentially in some way exists. So you have these little companions to Chica. You have Mr. Cupcake, and then you have like, I think there was like a burger, and then there's like the fries and the milkshake and stuff like that. All of those guys are also here in little animatronic form, and these guys all skate around as well. So there's a ton of little critters skating around. Now the little ones don't jump scare you. In the base game, Mr. Cupcake can jump scare you if you get too close, and here they don't. They just act like alert. So you got to keep an eye out for them. And there's not like a ton of them, but there are a good few, and you got to keep your eyes open because they're kind of small and they can hide behind boxes that you don't see. So you just got to work your way through here, make it past all these little guys, make it past Chica, and then once you make your way through, it's relatively easy. Again, another kind of small, I guess it's kind of a hunting section, but it's a little bit more fun since there's more going on. So you make your way through, you get out of the main warehouses area, you get to a set of hallways, and you'll see like some signs that point you towards the doll hospital. So now you know where you need to go next.
I just want to fix you up.
So you walk over to the hospital area, you follow the signs, you get there, and once you enter the hospital, you'll be greeted by Dolly, who comes like riding in up on her little track platform like she does in the main game. But here, she's actually kind of friendly. She's nice. She's like, hey, good to see you, but you're gonna have to wait because I've got like a crap load of other things I gotta work on right now. So stay here. I got my other tasks I gotta do. I'll be back. And then she like scoots off on her little platform and she leaves. This is regular robot Dolly, not mimic Dolly. So she's just regular robot. She just goes around and she does her thing. But she leaves, she goes through one of those little side doors, you know, that she needs her hands to open or whatever. And then she's gone. And basically you can just walk around the doll hospital area. Free, open, there's nothing really going on. You can just walk around. So you have to make your way to whatever the hospital office area is, because that's most likely where the upgrade station would be. So you walk through, you find the upgrade station in said office of the hospital office area, and it's like pretty straightforward. You're like, hey, maybe this one will be easy. You go in, you get the thing, and you get out. Maybe it won't be that bad after all. You grab it, but that's when you hear like a loud crashing noise, like a huge like crashing commotion from outside of the office area. So you walk back out and you see that Dolly's platform is stuck on the track. There's no Dolly in sight though. Just like the main game, the platform's stuck there, but she is gone. So you're cautious as you walk back out to the hospital, but there isn't anybody out there. She's not walking around. She's not doing anything. There's just nobody there now. And so you can walk back to the front doors being like, all right, well, that's a bit odd, but maybe I can leave. So you walk back to the front doors, but you find that the main entrance doors are now locked. That's when a phone will start ringing. You go over and answer it, and Edwin will tell you that the Mimic has locked down the whole hospital area. He's completely shut down the whole thing. But there is a way to get out. There usually isn't, because the whole place is locked down, but there is one possible way. If we go and deactivate the location's ventilation systems, so like the air duct systems, we can crawl our way through the vents and get out of the hospital. It would lead us to like the back factory storage area, but you know, that's kind of a price to pay if you're trying to escape a killer animatronic. So he tells us in order to deactivate it, we need to get to the control room, which is on the other side of the hospital area. With our task now given to us of trying to go deactivate the ventilation system, we need to work our way there. But this is where Dolly's gameplay mechanic now comes into, well, play. She's not walking around. She's not like stomping around. Unfortunately, that means that here we won't get the "you need a lobotomy" line, which is my favorite line from the whole game. We won't get that here, but it will come up later on. So do keep that in mind. But she's not walking around talking. Instead, what happens is if you make too much noise, or if you get too close to the doors that require her hands to open, she'll come bursting out of the doors and just charge you down. So you have to go cautious and slow to make your way to the ventilation control room. You can't go too fast and you can't get too close to the doors. Otherwise, she will get you. So it's sort of like a, I don't know, kind of like a sound sensitive almost, but not too much. So you just gotta carefully make your way to the control room. Once you're there, it's just a matter of like doing some data diver switches and flipping some other things, and the ventilation systems are now deactivated. We can crawl through a vent access port that's in said room, and we can crawl our way through the vents. But this is where Dolly's second kind of encounter gameplay comes into place. She'll try to break through some of the vent coverings and stuff like that to reach us. She'll also be saying her voice lines now. Probably this is where the "you need a lobotomy" line would go here somewhere. But she'll start talking to us. She'll start breaking through the vents and trying to reach us. We just got to make sure to avoid her grasp, move away from her, and crawl through the vents until we reach sort of a larger platform area that oversees this huge factory section. So once we get there, we're basically in the control room of the factory. And so you'll see conveyor belts, and you'll see like the vats that that hold the molten metal, very similar to what we see in the base game, maybe slightly smaller scale, but probably something similar in size. You get conveyor belts and you get this kind of thing. It's not a bottomless pit though. There's not a whole bunch of catwalks. It's just a room. So you get there and you're at these controls, but then you see Dolly kind of like smash through a wall. Like she's a tough animatronic. She breaks through a wall and she ends up walking onto the conveyor belt. So what we need to do is use the data diver to start up the factory system again. That'll get the conveyor belt moving. That'll move around the molten metal, all that kind of stuff. So we get things moving, and when we do so, Dolly is forced to kind of start walking on the factory like conveyor belt thing, because otherwise she's gonna like get dragged into whatever big molten concoction is at the end of the conveyor belt. And so she starts walking, and then we need to drop one of the molten metal vats on top of her. So we need to do another data diver thing, do some controls, probably a crane control like we have in the base game where you like move the cranes around, something like that, where we'll go and you can drop it. And this would initiate an in-game cutscene where you'll see the vat kind of like tip over, spilling molten metal on top of Dolly, and then the container tips completely like 180, so the open end lands right over top of Dolly, slamming through the conveyor belt and onto the ground, where the molten metal kind of cools and basically welds the container to the ground. So now the container is basically sealed Dolly in to like a tomb pretty much underneath of this thing, and it also sealed the mimic. So now we can go down there. It's quote unquote safe, so we can go down there and go up to the vat. But as we get closer to the vat, it's sort of like a Megamind situation where you'll see Dolly's hand just smash through the side of the vent. It's more so the mimic's hand, but you'll see the hand smash through the side of the, did I say vent? I meant vat. Through the side of the vat, and then you'll see the other hand break through right next to it, and you'll see the mimic start to like peel and break open the vat, which just shows how strong this animatronic is, that it's able to, one, smash through a solid like vat that can hold metal, like molten metal, can smash through this, and it can start to like peel its way out. So instead of it just being like Dolly kind of flops out like a fish out of some random container like in the base game, she's showing how, like, the mimic is showing how strong he is by just peeling himself out of this tomb, if you will. And so that's when Dolly's next phase starts. So she's breaking through the vent, and as she's doing so, she's breaking through the vat. We need to just get the heck out of there. So we need to just start running, and we can hear Dolly's broken voice behind us. So we see in the distance a hallway that connects to this ground floor. That's where we need to run to, and so a chase section does ensue. Molten Dolly will charge after us, and we just need to run through this dimly lit back storage area to avoid her. Run between shelves, run between different like racking and stuff like that, and she is just chasing us down. But eventually we will be forced into a dead end. It's game over. We're trapped, and she knows where we are. So she'll catch up to us, and she'll find us in this sort of alleyway between two shelves. And so she turns and she starts to walk up, and she puts one of her hands on the support beam for one of the shelving units. But since she's Molten Dolly, she melts right through it, which starts to cause the shelf to collapse. We need to get out of there by crawling underneath another one of the shelves. And so now this huge like pile up, there's just shelves collapsing on top of Dolly as we're like crawling out of there to get the heck out of this situation. So we get out of there, we're able to run away, and Dolly gets basically trapped under a huge amount of just random junk and storage equipment and racking and all this kind of stuff. And so thus ends the Dolly hunt. She's been neutralized now, obviously not the mimic, but Dolly herself is now neutralized, completely destroyed. And so we make it out of there, but we still find ourselves in the back storage area. Now, not the same one that Dolly's body is in, but we're still in this back storage area, and we need to make our way back to, not civilization, but to where the main security office, if you will, is. Just back to the main actual facility itself, and not the back storage area. But we aren't alone back here at all, because the mimic is still roaming around. So now we have to find our way back, and we just have to kind of wander through this dark, dimly lit storage area. But like I said, the mimic is still here, and he's already found another costume to wear. As we're walking through the area, we can spot a certain blue bunny just standing there and staring at us. This is sort of a weeping angel section where if you're staring at Bonnie, he won't move, but if you're not staring at him, then he'll move. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I am taking this very small section pretty much from one of my favorite fan games because it was so cool, and I think it's such a great way to incorporate Bonnie into this setting. One of my favorite fan games, the Fredbear Archives, is a really cool free roam FNAF fan game where you have to go up against some of the Rockstar animatronics, and in there, Rockstar Bonnie is sort of one of those weeping angel mechanics where if you're looking at him, he won't move, and if you're not looking at him, then he'll move. But all of this takes place in a warehouse setting, and I thought, how perfect would this be if we're in the back storage warehouse area, and I want Bonnie here anyway, because it barely even showed up in the main game. How cool would it be to kind of incorporate that here? So that's what we're looking at, and Bonnie's design would probably be like something derivative of the other two that I've brought up so far with Foxy and Chica, where it's not quite the classic Bonnie we know. Obviously you can tell who it is, but his design is a little bit more realistic and a little bit more different from something like Fazbear's design, just to kind of show that, like, hey, Edwin does have his own creative takes on these characters. However, he is a Fazbear character first and foremost. While Foxy is an Edwin character, Chica is kind of somewhere in between. Bonnie and Freddy are Fazbear character originals, so they come straight from William Afton's mind. So while Edwin designs their suits, he does not own them completely. They are Fazbear designs. So I just want to make that clear before people are like, oh, is Bonnie a Edwin design? Did William steal that? Nope, Bonnie is a Fazbear design. They just happen to have one of the suits laying in deep storage since they work with Fazbear Entertainment. So anyway, back to the actual gameplay of this section, which is very small, which is why I talked a little bit more about some lore stuff here. Basically, you just gotta walk around and wander your way through here until you find your way out. It'll be kind of like, you can't really go the wrong way. You might get lost in all the storage units, but you won't, like, you'll find your way out eventually. It's not that complex. So you work your way through the back storage areas, and eventually you'll run into a set of doors that will bring you into the theater area. So having stumbled into the theater area, of course, there's a phone on the wall. We get a call from dispatch, who's like, hey, you okay? You made it out okay? Afton's also there. Afton shows up and he's like, yo, buddy, you okay? Like, we lost contact with you for a little bit. We just want to make sure everything's running okay. Last time we heard from you, you were going to the doll hospital. Where are you at now? They're just checking in on us. It's almost like they care, but they don't. So they're just making sure that we're still on track to get the task done, pretty much. But they're talking to us and they're like, hey, from what we can tell, there should be an upgrade port somewhere in like the theater backstage area. You're just going to have to find that. It shouldn't be too difficult. It should be pretty easy. Just go get the port and the upgrade and just call it a day. And so we walk through the main theater area, because in order to get to the backstage, we need to go through the main, performance area. So as we enter the theater, though, we are greeted by a very familiar character who is very excited to see us. However, they're a little bit more theatrical than they are daycare attendant-y. We run into Sun himself, and he's as friendly as ever, and he's talking to us, and he's super excited that somebody's here to watch his show, because he's a performer. He performs theater, and that's what he does. So he's like, hey, there's somebody here who could help me perform on stage. So he asks if we want to see a performance, and he basically just jumps on stage and begins to act. He's doing some fancy like Shakespearean play or something, I don't know, he's acting. And he tells us that we need to control some of the stage effects, stage lights, different effects on the stage to help really show off his performance. And so basically he demands that we go back to the control booth of the theater. We don't really have a choice. There's nowhere else you can go, so you kind of have to go back there anyway. But he very much is like, get the heck back there. I'm running a show. You better listen to me. So he's friendly, but he's also very like, do as I say. So we go back to the control booth area of the theater, and we get there, and we're kind of helping him out with the stage lights. We're having a bit of fun, and there's like some fun music playing. And then Tiger Rock shows up, and he shows up in front of us. And this is probably the most violent interaction we've had with them so far, not in terms of actual like attacking, but in terms of how much he's shaking the building. Every time Tiger Rock shows up, each one gets more and more volatile, and this time the building shakes so much that the theater begins to collapse. Very similar collapsing like in the base game, but this time there's a reason for it. It doesn't just happen and then you're like, oh, well, what was that? Like, it just collapsed for no reason. Here, it's that Tiger Rock showed up and he's causing this place to collapse. But what happens is when the theater collapses, the main lights turn off. And so now Sun freaks out because he's turning into Moon. And he turns into Moon, but we still have some of the stage lights shining on the stage. And Moon freaks out and he hides in the darkness. And now we have our task to do. We need to keep Moon at bay. And this would be kind of similar to the carousel from Help Wanted 2, where Moon can show up on various points on the stage and in like the audience and like the balcony sections, and we need to shine different spotlights on him and like move them around in order to make sure that he doesn't progress closer to us and jump scare us. So it's a fun Moon interaction where it's similar to the gameplay we've played before, but it's also a little bit different. We need to make sure that he stays at bay and controlling the stage lights and all that kind of stuff, and it's like super dark, but all you can see is Moon's creepy eyes glowing, and that's sort of an indication as to where he is, along with his signature laugh. So we just do this for a little bit of time, and eventually Moon just kind of gets sick of it, and he just like buggers off. He gets out of there. He's like, I'm done with this crap. I'm leaving for right now. So he dips out, and this is our chance to run backstage and get to the upgrade port. So we run backstage, and we see that area is also very devastated by, you know, the building collapsing around it. So the lights are off there too. So we run back there, we see an upgrade port, we upgrade the data diver, but we aren't out of this situation yet. Moon shows back up, and he jumps up onto one of these sections, like one of the open sections between the main stage and the backstage, and he sees us. And this would be sort of like a cutscene, an in-game cutscene. So he jumps up there, and next to us we see a generator and like a prop light, you know, like those like lights that have the stands that you can kind of see in like construction sites or like sometimes in stage sites, where it's sort of like one of those kind of lights, like a prop light. So you activate the light in said cutscene, and it shines on where Moon is. But this time he doesn't flee. This is sort of a ruin situation where Moon is standing still, and you need to go around and activate lights, enough of which will turn him back to Sun, or at least force him away. It seems simple enough, right? In the ruin section, there's nobody hunting you except for Scooby-Doo villain. Here, it's a little bit different. There's nobody who's going to directly jump scare you, although if you take too long, Moon will jump scare you. So it's a little bit of a time section, but there is some leeway in the time. However, since Moon isn't the mimic is still out here, and he's still on the hunt. So the mimic shows up, but he's wearing one of the backstage costumes, and said costume looks a little bit like a certain Balloon Boy that we all know and some of us hate. That's right, I'm throwing Balloon Boy in here as an Edwin created character. Not fully directly, and his name wouldn't be Balloon Boy, but he has the same appearance. He's a lot taller, since like kind of the size of the Mimic, but the Mimic also shrinks down to fit in the suit. So he's a little bit taller than regular Balloon Boy, but a little bit smaller than like a regular suit. He's kind of like somewhere in the middle. Probably close in size to maybe Nightmare Balloon Boy, but I also don't know how big that guy is. So anyway, we have a character who looks a lot like Balloon Boy, the potential origins of Balloon Boy, since he kind of just shows up out of nowhere in FNAF 2 and doesn't really get much explanation beyond that. So here's just like sort of fun. It doesn't have to be anything serious, but it's a fun origin for him. But it also is the return of Balloon Boy's gameplay mechanic. That's right, the Mimic won't hunt us down directly, but he will try to turn off the lights that we have on to stop the Mimic, because Balloon Boy likes to turn off the lights. So that's what the Mimic is doing. He's trying to turn off the lights so that Moon will kill us. So we just have to make sure to turn off the lights before the Mimic gets to them, because otherwise he'll disable them completely and thus ruin our chances of actually being able to stop Moon. So we just got to kind of fight with the Mimic in terms of keeping the lights on, but then not letting the Mimic turn them off. And it's sort of a less intense, like we're going to die. But if you also don't get enough lights on, Moon will kill you. So it's a little bit intense, but it's also a little bit of a not lighter section, but you get what I'm saying, hopefully. So you do this for a while. Mimic is kind of annoying. He's trying to turn off the lights. Eventually you get enough lights on that Moon turns back to sun, and we can flee the theater, and we can because the Mimic isn't going to hunt us down because he's just Balloon Boy. So we can leave the theater. We leave, and as we get back to like the set of hallways outside of the backstage theater area, we find ourselves in an area that will lead us to the executive wing. So now that we are close to the executive wing, we can work our way there, and this would sort of take over the Chica admin section, you know, where you're walking through like offices and stuff like that. That's sort of what this location is. However, I'm combining two different sections. I'm combining that Chica section, but this is also where Tiger Rock makes his appearance. He's not hiding out in the basement, which I still think is cool. I'm just changing it here for this because I think this kind of works a little bit cooler. You enter the executive wing, you get there, and you find that the place is completely ruined. Everything else has been kind of okay with some signs of damage here and there. This section is ravaged beyond belief. There's tables and chairs thrown all over the place. There's holes in the walls and the ceiling. It's been devastated. There's even signs that it looks like there might have been a fire there at one point. It's just completely devastated. And a lot of the lights are out. So we walk in there, but that's when the lights completely flicker off. They're now gone. And Tiger Rock appears in front of us. You see his glowing eyes staring at you, and he appears in front of us. He stares, and then he disappears. But he isn't gone. He's out there. And this is the main scary Tiger Rock section that's going to be even, hopefully, scarier than the base game. The gameplay here plays very similar to the main game's Tiger Rock section, where you got to walk around and make your way to a location, minus the whole glowing stars, open doors thing. I don't mind that, but I'm changing it up here since that doesn't really work for the situation. Basically, you have to wander through the executive wing until you find the admin offices, which will be a little bit of a safe spot for you from Tiger Rock since the lights are still on in there. So you walk through and you basically just have to blindly find your way there since the whole area doesn't have any lights on. But you can see like a little ways in front of you. There's like a small glow around you that's supposed to, I guess, somewhat resemble like being able to adapt to seeing in the dark a little bit. So you're walking and you can see a little bit in front of you, and that's when like you'll walk and Tiger Rock will just be like right there, and you have to like just stop and back up because otherwise Tiger Rock will jump scare you, since sometimes his eyes don't glow. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't, just like the base game. So you're walking through here, and basically you just gotta wander around until you find the admin wing, which there would be some signs, like it'll be, there's some direction to bring you there, otherwise you wouldn't be able to get through this section. Maybe there's like a phone ringing or something like that. I don't entirely have everything for this part figured out, but basically you just gotta walk there and avoid running into Tiger Rock. So eventually you get to the admin's office, and you get there and you find the final upgrade machine. So you upgrade the data diver to the maximum upgrade with the executive upgrade feature thing. And there also happens to be access to Edwin's office right there, at least his, actual MCM facility office. So you go in there And you can find some secrets in there. There's nothing important in there, like it's just his office, but you can find hints of like the Mimic and David hanging out or stuff like that, and hints that Tiger Rock has potentially been in this room as well. So just this is where some of the said secrets of the title, Secrets of the Mimic, would end up being. So you can explore around there, find some notes and stuff like that, but there's nothing really too crucial there. But now that you got the upgrade, you got to get the heck out of this area. So you go back into the main executive wing, and now you got to make your way back out to those hallways that you entered from. So you got to wander back through the dark pretty much to get there. But Tiger Rock is getting very angry that he hasn't found you yet. He is the ghost of David after all, so he's a kid. He was playing some fun hide and seek. He's losing. He's getting a little bit angry. He's got a little bit of a temper. He is a ghost as well, so he's getting a little bit of a temper, and now he's basically just constantly roaming around, and he's throwing things as he does so. He's tossing tables. He's tossing chairs. You basically just have to avoid like running into him as he's making a ton of noise. Now, it is a little bit easier since he will be audible as to where he is because he's making a lot of noise, but he's also fast, so there's a chance that while you're walking, he'll just run into you. So the easiest way to avoid him would be to, if you hear him getting closer, to stop moving, because if you're not moving, then the odds are he won't hit you. So that's basically what you have to do. You got to walk back through here, avoid getting hit by him. This part takes a little bit of inspiration from one of my other favorite games. It's a game called It Steals. I've played it on the channel a couple times. There's a certain level in there where you have to walk around and then eventually hold your breath because there's a ghost roaming around the area. It's super cool. I love that game. So a little bit of inspiration from that in terms of what's happening here. But basically, you walk through this area, you avoid getting attacked by Tiger Rock. He's throwing things around. Eventually, you make it through, you get back out, and you're free to go. A very simplistic section, but probably one of these scarier sections. Definitely not the scariest section, though. Anyway, you make your way back out to the main hallways. You get there, you get back to the hallways, and you can now make your way back to the main security office, since that's sort of like the main safe area of the factory. It's also kind of like the hub. You don't need to go there, but it's easier to go back there. So you make your way back to the security office, and that's it for this section.
I've planned something special just for you.
Alright, so we're starting to reach the home stretch of the game here. We're starting to reach the final act, if you will, of our little story we have going on here. So you make it back to the security office, and there, Edwin will call you and tell you that in order to get to the house, the easiest, fastest, and a little bit more of a secret way to get there is that there's a path that connects between his house and the like studio demo setup warehouses that you can set up locations to demonstrate like, hey, this is what it might look like once it's completed. For example, there's a warehouse, and this is where the hallway connects to, that is set up to sort of test and demo the Fazbear project. Hence, this is what is going to be replacing the sort of underground Freddy setup that we see in the base game. So we get our task, we head out there, and we leave the main security office. There we go. We head on out to where we need to go. We head out to the testing warehouses, and in order to get there, we actually have to go outside. And this is actually sort of our little bit of outside time in the game, if you will. You know, like in the base game, we go out on the roof and it's snowing a little bit. Here, it's sort of the same setup. It's snowing because I like snow. And so you just kind of walk outside for a minute and you walk up to the various warehouses. I'm sure there would be secrets in some of the other ones, potentially a Mediocre's Melodies secret in one of them. But we need to go to the Freddy's warehouse, and that's the main one that we can unlock. We go in there, and it's a very similar setup that we see in the main game, where it's the sort of FNAF 1-esque location, and you see some animatronics that are still being put together in said location. They're a little bit more complete here, but you can see some of them still being put together in this location. So you go in there, and this is where probably the largest Easter egg reference area is going to be. This whole thing is going to be basically an homage. Did I say homage? A homage to the early days of FNAF 1 and slash just kind of like early FNAF period. So you get to see a ton of stuff in there that we see in the base game. For example, we get to see a bunch of the animatronics. However, there are going to be some differences. For example, there aren't any spring locks here, so there's no spring lock suits to wear. Instead, they're replaced by and more animatronics. And the main roster we have here are Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica, but no Foxy, because before FNAF 1 came out, when Scott was working on the game, he was debating between a fox, a wolf, and a beaver. So here, there's no Foxy yet because he's not part of the gang. Instead, you have a wolf animatronic and a beaver animatronic. They're here to take the place. And last of the main animatronics you have here, you have a Sparky the dog animatronic. So it's all just a big homage to classic FNAF. But that's not it, because we get to see some Endo 01 adjacent stuff like we do in the base game. However, instead of it just being Endo 01 and causing a ton of confusion about who we see in FNAF 1, like what, did Fazbear Entertainment just perfectly recreate the Edwin models? Like, what happened there? Instead of it being like that, the Endo 01 model is pretty much the same, but the face is a little bit different. It looks like the early teaser images of Freddy / Endo faces, where they have the slightly different head structure, thus another Easter egg to early FNAF. I just think that would be so cool, and they had the perfect opportunity to do so, because it really wouldn't change like anything with the lore if they made the Endo 01 models look like this. That would just be such a huge pull from like out of nowhere, and it would have been so cool if they had done that. But then they didn't. They had the perfect opportunity to, and they blew it. They didn't do it. So I think here would be the perfect opportunity to just give that reference, a ton of references to early FNAF that classic fans, myself included, would remember and be like, this is cool. So basically this whole area is just like a big reference to early Five Nights at Freddy's. So that's kind of the big thing here. But Easter eggs aside, our task in this area is still very similar to the base game, where we have to deactivate the main security system. It's not Fiona or the Mimic, so don't worry about that. But the security system is going to be automated, where it uses the cameras and closes the doors if you get too close. So you need to move animatronics into position. They're all in these little like push carts that you can move around. And so you just need to move them into position to block the cameras, thus closing some of the doors, or closing like the main security doors, not just like random doors, but the main security doors. So the hallways still remain open. It's just the office doors that are closed. And so you move them into position, you block the cameras, it'll drain the office power will run out, the doors open, you can go in there and access the hallway. However, you are not alone here. You can move most of the animatronics to block the cameras, but there is one character in particular who has rarely in recent times actually seen like the center stage limelight of a villain role. They've rarely seen it in the games, especially recently, and that is of the namesake of the series itself, Freddy Fazbear. He is here, and he is actually the antagonist of this section. He actually has a part where he hunts you down, and he shows up. He's not just a headless model that they put into a game called Five Nights at Freddy's. It's a Freddy's game. Freddy should be here. So Freddy shows up, and he's an actual villain. And this section I think is also super cool because he moves around like FNAF 1 Freddy. He likes to move around to different locations. He doesn't attack you directly, he likes to work his way there. And so this section is actually timed because Freddy will slowly make his way to the office, and if he gets there before you are done, you're dead. So what happens is Freddy will laugh and he'll move around the location like he typically does. And once he gets to the office, if he gets there before you do, the main power will shut off, and he'll do his classic lighten up his face and doing the ba 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 da da, the classic Tornado March straight out of FNAF 1. That'd just be so cool to see, and so that's what's happening here. He does that if he gets to your office first, and basically he'll just hunt you down. He'll give you a little bit of time to, I don't know, sit and wait until he kills you, and then he'll jump scare you, and you'll have to do the section over again. If you get to the office first, then you're fine. You'll get there, and you can go through your task and do the rest of the mission as planned. He's not a huge antagonist, but he actually plays a cool role. So that's this section. It's relatively small, just like the other Fazbear character sections are, since I don't think they need to be the focus of the game, since it's not a Freddy Fazbear location, but I still think it's good to include them since it's a Five Nights at Freddy's game, so Freddy Fazbear should be here. So it's a relatively simple section. You work your way through there, you get through. I feel like I said that a lot, so I'm just going to end this section off here. And yeah, you go through, you get to the main office, you open the door, and now you find yourself in the hallway to lead to Edwin's house.
M1 can do it all.
So you enter through the security office, you find the door, you enter into the hallway, and it's a small, narrow hallway. So by small, I mean like small/narrow, but it's a really long hallway. So you got to just walk through this hallway, go through there. And it's not like something you see out of like Security Breach where they're like huge hallways. You get what I'm saying? So you go through this area, you go there, and it's just a straight beeline to the house. There's no like little paths you got to take. It's just a straight line there. So you walk down this hallway, you get to a door that connects to the basement of the house. You unlock it with the the data driver. They're the same thing. So you open it with the data driver, and you need it fully upgraded to open the door. So you can't really get here without it being fully upgraded, but if you somehow did, you couldn't get through this door. So you go through there, and you find yourself in Edwin's house. And it's not in like a falling apart condition. It's in good condition, because it's only been like a week since everybody went missing. So the house is fine. But you find that Edwin's door to his office is blocked, and he'll tell you that you need to find a code, because you'll go up there and he'll talk to you, and he'll be like, hey, you need to find a code in order to let me out of here. I don't know how to find it, but just look around. You should be able to find the code to let me out. And the code finding would be very similar to the base game, where you have to watch the birthday reels for David in order to find the code at the end, just to give you some lore and discover some secrets of the mimic and whatever. So if you watch those, you get to the end, you get your code, and you can go from there. Now I'm going to bring this up here. We're going to kind of interrupt the story for a second. This is where the canon and bad endings split from the good ending. So the good ending would be very similar to the base game. You have to find some different items, store them, play a mini game of some kind, and unlock the ability to have a different upgrade on your data diver. So once you get to the house, you'll be able to go into David's bedroom and do the whole like storybook thing where the mimic shows up and he's going to try to kill you, but then you're doing the storybook and then he turns into David, and you can deactivate him with the data diver and call it a day. Hey, it's a good ending. You deactivated the mimic, he's gone, and you save the day. Yahoo, yippee ki-yay, yes, you won. So it's the good ending. It's pretty much just the base game, just with a few less steps, because you don't need to replay the game again to get it. So it's just a little bit simpler. But this is where the good ending ends and diverges from the rest of the game. So now back to the main game. You get your code, you go up to the office door, you input the code, and the door's open, and an in-game cutscene will take over. The door's open, and the room is like super dark. There's a little bit of light peeking in from the window outside, and well, from the moonlight coming through the window. You know what I'm saying? So there's a little bit of light coming in from there, and a little bit of light coming in from the doors that we just opened. So you go in, you take a couple steps in there. Well, the cutscene does. You take a couple steps in there, and you see a person sitting at a desk. Probably Edwin sitting at his desk, and he's just sitting there. And then you see him stand up, and he turns around. And Ralph would be like, hey, Edwin, is that you? I'm here to help out. But he doesn't respond. And so Edwin just stands up, turns around, and he looks at you. And then you ask again. You're like, hey, Edwin? And Ralph takes a step back. And that's when Edwin responds in a garbled, staticky-ish voice with a thank you. This is where it starts to build up. Just a heads up, might be a little bit creepy here. So he speaks, he says thank you. And that's when you can tell that this isn't Edwin. And then two specks of light where Edwin's eyes should be appear. And then the spiral burning eyes of the mimic burn through where Edwin's eyes would be. And he also starts to kind of try to like grow in size a little bit, thus kind of disfiguring and contorting Edwin's body even further. But it's all in the dark, so you don't really see it. It's not that gruesome, but he starts to do this a little bit more. And so Ralph like basically backs out of the room at this point. But you see Edwick, as we'll call him, reach a hand out onto the ground, and he's like moved the desk out of the way. And then you see another hand reach out, and you just get a glimpse of his face. But as he reaches the other hand out, it smashes against a breaker on the wall and shuts the power off to the entire house. All the lights go out. It's just pitch dark, except for some moonlight coming in from the windows and the mimic's burning eyes. And now you got to get the heck out of there. Gameplay resumes, and your first idea is to just get to the basement door and get the heck out of there. So you run down there, and you can't leave. The door doesn't have any power, so you can't get out. You need to go around the house and find 3 generators to activate in order to get enough power to open the door. But you're obviously not alone, as Edwig is roaming around the house looking for you, and he would be speaking in Edwin's garbled voice, trying to talk to you, trying to lure you back in to give him the data diver. If you just give him the data diver, he'll let you go. You just have to listen to him. You need to help me. I need to get out of here. He talks like that. And so it's creepy, it's dark, and it's disturbing. And so you got to go around the house, find these 3 generators and activate them without getting caught by Edwig. And so you do so, eventually you get it, and while the lights are still pretty much off, the door now has enough power to open. So you get out of there, you get back into the hallway, and the hallway is now filled with like dim flashing red lights. Not like flashing, but like kind of fading in and out red lights, emergency lights. And so you take a few steps into the hallway, and you hear a like blood curdling scream. It's like an Edwin scream mixed with the mimic yelling, and he is now chasing you down this hallway. It's a straight line stretch with Edwig just chasing you down this hallway, and you have to run as fast as you can. You run down here. Obviously, if you get caught, you're jump scared, you're dead. But if you make it back to the Freddy security office, you close the door behind you and you're safe. The section will be over. Now, I do just want to talk about, since the section's over, that yes, this is very gruesome. I'll give some more information about why I made this decision in my behind the discussions video tomorrow, so you're definitely going to want to watch that. But let's just say this has been an idea that I have been toying with for one of my rewrite videos for quite some time, and is actually inspired by a scene I made for my 4th closet rewrite video. So there is some precedent in my rewrite videos to do something like this. Plus, I think it would really just build up the horror and the disturbing factor by doing something like this. Sure, it's gruesome, and maybe we keep everything in the dark to not get like a super mature rating, but like, hey, it would be freaking awesome, and it would be super creepy and disturbing. And we know something like this has happened in FNAF before with Michael Afton, so I think there's also some precedence there to do something similar. Also, I think it just makes the mimic out to be super ruthless and super crazy. Also, this does reveal that Edwin throughout the game was the mimic. He was never Edwin. He was dead the whole time. Just to get that point across too. So anyway, that's it for this section, and you're back in the Fazbear office to move on to the conclusion of the story.
I only wanted to play!
So after you escape the mimic, you just need to make your way back to the security office. You get back there, you can talk to the dispatch, and William Afton's there too, and you're all talking to each other, everybody's talking to each other, and William Afton will say something about like, last time he was talking with Edwin while being there, Edwin had brought up some sort of advanced like location security system that's designed to be able to contain something like this from happening. Now, obviously it didn't work, but it's supposed to be able to control and contain the animatronics should an event happen. So Edwin was thinking about contingencies, it just didn't work. So William Afton says something about that, and that there should be some room in the basement that would probably have this in there. And so that is our new quest. We need to head down there. However, this is also where the bad ending would diverge. The bad ending is if you just leave the data driver in the office and you just leave. You just get the heck out of the location. If you just go, which is an option that you can do, then that's the bad ending. And that's the ending where you leave. The mimic will climb on top of your car as you're driving away, do the smashing through the windshield, crashing the car, except this time he won't try to reach in to grab anything since there's nothing to do. You'll just see him walk down the road away from the burning wreck, showing that he is free. Now, this is the bad ending, so it's not the canon ending, but this is where that one diverges. So if you do the good or bad ending, you actually get less content of the game. So the canon ending is the one that gives you the most amount of content. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, the canon ending is that you head down to the basement, which you've not been to before, but there would be like some staircase that leads you down there. It's not super difficult to find. So you go down there, and the basement area for those of you who have seen my rewrite video on Ruin, would sound somewhat familiar. It's a set of hallways, a set of stuff that we would have seen in my Ruin rewrite. Except there, it's a lot more broken. Here, they're all complete. So you walk through these hallways, and you gotta find your way to wherever the security room is. But you are not alone down here. You will hear a very familiar voice, and that is when broken or ruined Jackie shows up again. She was climbing through the vent system. You'll see her hand pop out one of the vent covers. She'll kind of just like plop out of the vent onto the ground and stand back up. And Jackie is back, if you know what I'm talking about. So she's back and she is hunting you down now. And you got to run through the hallways to avoid her attacking you. It's basically just a huge Jackie chase sequence. And you got to try to lose her. But Tiger Rock is also showing up. It's a whole, they're inviting the whole band here. So Tiger Rock is here, haunting you as well, causing the building to shake more violently and starting to collapse the building even further. And so you got to avoid Tiger Rock, and you have to avoid Jackie, who is hunting you down. Eventually, once you find your way to where said security room would be, you find yourself in a larger open room. And this would be a minor cutscene. You'd run through, like, the open, like the hallway connects to this room, so you'd run through there. You'd hear a collapse happen, turn around and see Jackie getting crushed by like some collapsing debris behind you, and so she gets taken out, and now you're free to access the security room area. And so this room is also very similar, as in the same one that we see in my Ruin rewrite. And you got a large room with a large garage door directly in front of you, a door to the left and a door to the right. Now the door to the right says like security room on it or something of the sort, and so you know that's the one that you need to go to. However, you kind of want to trap the mimic first before you activate the security system. So a trap then ensues where you go into the garage door area to trap him in there. Hey, if you can trap him in here and then activate the security system, you should be good. So you go into the garage door area and you find out what happened to all the other employees that used to work here. The mimic killed them all, brought them all down here, along with some endo spare parts and stuff like that. And this room is basically the mimic's den. This is where he's been hanging out for like a long time, and until he came back and decided to try to kill everybody. So this is where he was hanging out. And so you go in there, and there would be some sort of like puzzle solving thing here. I don't have all the details figured out, but there'd be some sort of puzzle solving mechanic where you have to like set up a trap where the garage door is going to close behind you and trap the mimic in there, and he can't open it. And then you can activate the security system to make sure that he can't leave. So you set that thing up, and then once you're done setting it up, a cutscene will begin where the mimic lifts the garage door up and like lets himself in, and the garage door would stay open. And he like walks in and he's got you like dead to rights. Like he's right there. And so you do your little trap. Something would happen. You like avoid him. He goes in. Maybe he like slips on a banana peel or something. Like he gets out of there. Obviously there's not gonna be a banana peel, but you get what I'm saying. So you kind of like trap him or dodge him somehow. You get the garage door to close. You do a little bit of like an Indiana Jones slide under the garage door. I don't know if this would be like a quick time event or if it's just a cutscene, but you make it out of there. The garage door closes and the mimic is stuck behind there, trying to make his way back out by like banging on it, but it's like a super sturdy door. Now he did make his way through a metal vat, but he was also molten, so he could melt through it. He can't do that here, but you also don't want to take your chances. Go activate the security system and make sure he can't leave. So you go to the room that's titled security, you go in there, and it would be a similar site to something like Zola from Winter Soldier, where you have a bunch of like computer towers set up in this room. Obviously not as vast, but there's a bunch of computer towers with a central like spire tower kind of a thing that's like floor to ceiling computer. It's a little bit futuristic-y, it's a little bit Tron-like, but it kind of works. So you get this computer tower, and on the side, you'll see letters for MLHR, which would stand for, I don't really know, but some sort of like Murray's something or other. I don't have a name for it. It's supposed to sound like Malhare, but obviously that doesn't work for here yet. The whole can of worms. Anyway, it says MLHR. You go on, you use the data diver to activate the security system. You do some fiddling around on the computer, you activate it, and now the mimic is trapped. And that's really about it for this section. You've trapped the mimic, you're safe, you saved the day, you're free to go. You can get the heck out of here. You won. It's a good ending. You survived. But not everything is over yet. Now that you've neutralized the mimic, you go back out to the main area to leave, and there'll be like multiple hallways that connect. So the one that Jackie's blocking, you can't go down, but there's another hallway that you can leave through. I just wanted to make that clear. I realized I didn't bring that up in the last section, so I'm bringing it up here. So you're going to go to leave, but then Tiger Rock shows up again, and this is the most like crazy interaction you've had. He's now collapsing the building. And so you got to get the heck out of there. The building is sinking into the ground. You got to go. And so now it's a little bit of a chase sequence where you have to avoid Tiger Rock, who's like trying to kill you. So you have to like avoid him, take different paths, and get the heck out of the building. All the doors would be open, so it's just a free run. It's basically just a sprinting simulator with Tiger Rock trying to kill you along the way. So you just got to get the heck out of there as the whole building's collapsing. You'll run past other animatronics that are like falling over or breaking apart. There aren't going to be any of those like Muppet looking things, you know, like the weird trash can with the weird robot eyes. There's not going to be any of those stupid things. They don't make any sense. I hate those things because they're just so weird. Like everything else in the game, you can get over. Those things I can't because they're just so wacky. Anyway, they're not here. So you just leave, you avoid Tiger Rock, eventually you make your way back up to the top, you leave the building, you get the heck out of there, and you get back to the van, and you drive off. And this would be like an ending cinematic cutscene, which I really felt like was kind of lacking from this game. We haven't seen much cinematic cutscenes since like Security Breach. I kind of miss them. They're kind of cool. So we're bringing them back here, and there's a cinematic cutscene that shows you driving off from the facility, and the whole MCM factory is like collapsing into the ground. It's just sinking down into the ground. And then the screen fades to black. You did it. You won. You beat the game. But then the screen fades back in, and you see your car parking next to two other cars in just some parking lot. The screen then fades out and back in because you're now controlling the character and gameplay again, and you're outside of the van. And you turn around to see a building with the sign Fredbear's Family Diner on top of it, and there'd be a fun cartoon picture of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie waving. We're finally seeing Fredbear's Family Diner in an actual game that's not just like an 8-bit mini game in FNAF 4. We're actually seeing it here. But that's not all, because you get to go inside the building too. And the outside would look kind of similar as you can to an 8-bit minigame. It would look kind of like the one from FNAF 4. So you go inside, and the interior would also look somewhat similar to the FNAF 4 one, where you have like similar decorations, a long central room with some doors splitting off to either side, and then at the very end is a stage with two animatronics on it. We'll get to them in a second. But you'll notice on one of the walls there's a phone, and you can go to the phone and type in some codes to get some phone calls. But one in particular, if you type in a certain date, a certain year, you'll get a certain phone call, I'm saying certain a lot, between William Afton and Henry Emily.
Hello, Henry speaking.
Hello, Henry.
Ah, Mr. Afton. What can I help you with? Are you looking to update those old mascot suits?
As a matter of fact, I am. I have heard you've got some very interesting and advanced products, and I would be delighted to see them in action.
Well, of course. I'd be happy to have you here at the warehouse to see what I've been working on. In fact, I've got something that will revolutionize the entertainment industry.
Fascinating. It's something more advanced than anything at MCM.
Murray's place? That old factory's a thing of the past. He tries to replace the real performers with just robots. But why not have it both ways? A suit you can wear, but when not worn, it can double as a robot.
Very interesting. I could really use a product like that.
So you get some context as to some of the events and stories that take place. So William Afton, being sort of not happy with how Edwin's been doing things, went to Henry to be like, hey, I want you to make me some robots for my fancy schmancy diner in my new location that I'm going to open. And then Henry's like, hey, I got some things called spring lock suits, so you can wear them as suits, but you can also wear them as like, or you don't have to wear them, but you can also set them up as an animatronic. And William's like, that is a sick deal. I'm going to take that. So it's just a fun connection. Also, Henry gets to speak in here. There would be some other Easter eggs that you can get, like voice lines between like Henry and Edwin throughout the game as well. But this is like the most important one because it's William and Henry actually talking to each other. So I just think that's super fun. And that's not the only thing that happens here. So you can do that. And if you keep walking to the stage, it'll get clearer and clearer, and eventually you'll walk up to it, and when you get close enough, a cutscene will begin. But you get to see classic Spring Bonnie and classic Fredbear and their Scott designs, like slightly updated for like the 3D models and all that kind of stuff, but the Scott designs, so cleaned up Springtrap and sort of UCN-esque Fredbear, but like not just a PNG shaking on screen. So like a golden Freddy that's probably slightly a little bit larger with a purple top hat and a purple bow tie. We get to finally see them in a game, and they don't do anything, but they're finally here. And so we get to see them. The cutscene would go where it's just Ralph looking up at them. Then we would hear like a noise from behind us and a hand placed on our shoulder. And then our character will turn around and they'll see somebody wearing a purple Freddy's outfit with a badge, and they'll ask us a question. They'll talk to us.
Hey, Ralph, why don't you tell me about everything you saw there?
All right, well, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. It was a big production. A lot of work went into this, a lot of effort, and a lot of other people also helped out with it. Obviously, I showed off a lot of those people in the credits, so I'll only do a little bit of a smaller shout out here since, you know, I had the credits. So I just want to give a shout out to the Baldwin Birds 2 and Solid Silver for really just helping out a lot in this video with not only just voice lines. I mean, that was like the majority of things, but just also with extra support and stuff like that. So I just want to give them a huge thanks, especially for Solid Silver, who went and found somebody else to help out with some of the voice lines. I'll have a link to her page, I guess you could say, in the description, so a special thanks to her as well. And just wanted to give some shout outs to some people. I also want to give a shout out to Luke for, he wasn't able to provide voices for the video, but I still want to give him a shout out for just being there and being supportive. So just a special thanks to all of you guys for helping out, and to the rest of you for watching this video and being supportive of the channel in one way or another. So just thank you all. And yeah, we'll kind of wrap up this outro here. I know it was a little bit of a longer video, so we'll just kind of get things done here. We'll do our shameless plugs like we always do. So go check them out. I got like a ton of stuff in the description, a bunch of stuff. So just go check out the description and you'll find everything you need there. One thing I do want to do though, shout outs for channel members. I do that in pretty much every video I do. So we're going to do that here again because that's what I said I do. So shout out to my current channel members. Thank you guys very much for being my members. It really does just mean everything to me. So thank you guys so much. And here is your video shout out. And yeah, with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So thanks for watching. We'll do our questions of the day. So question number 1, what did you think of the rewrite? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think? And question number 2 is, what is your favorite mascot from Secret of the Mimic? Those are your 2 questions. Answer them down below if you made it this far in the video. And with that, I will see you in tonight's live stream, where we will be continuing our revisit of Secret of the Mimic itself. So I'll see you then. Goodbye.